Welcome to episode 85 of the ADHD Adults podcast. I see. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Sorry.
We can hear all that.
I'm so sorry.
Our seemingly continuing experiment of adding an extra 40 minutes of utter rubbish to your life each week. I'm James Brown, as usual. I'm joined by... It says insert joke because I forgot to do it. Dr. Alex Connor and insert joke, Mrs. ADHD.
That is brilliant.
Perfect.
Alex, hi.
It just says Alex and there's a gap.
Yep. Okay,
This
and
is
Mrs.
because
ADHD.
I went through and took out the old bits of the script, expecting you to put new bits in.
No. And Mrs. ADHD, hi. Please read what it says.
Response.
Perfect.
Respond. This is ChatGPT's version of the ADHD Adults podcast.
Hi.
Oh man, we could get ChatGPT to do a script for us, and it'd just
Or I
be.
could do one.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Actually, that would be better.
It would be much better. Right. A reminder that we started this podcast because we wanted to show off about science and have evidence for things that were said about ADHD. But people keep asking for more personal reflections and bonus content because they don't like the bit I do. So now we have time for an extra one as blah blah blah. That's you writing that, is it, James? My bit just says blah 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 now, does it? I'm here trying to write an informative yet amusing script for a podcast described by one critic as it's just people telling each other how rubbish they are, and also my head hurts. And you're getting in the way of gold, James, with this.
1 star.
Yeah, indeed. Sam is here as well, because if we're going to tell someone they're rubbish, I can't think of anyone I'd like to do that to more.
Absolutely spot on. Anyway, as usual, this man in his 40s who replies lol to your WhatsApp messages.
I wrote that.
Yeah. But no, you didn't write that. I wrote that. It's one of my welcomes. You wrote, that's me, isn't it?
I did, yeah, but only
you
for you to
didn't
see,
colour
not
it blue.
to read out.
Yeah.
So I do
assumed
write.
You were going to read it.
I write LOL. Right, let's have this out. Right, we've been
fine.
You put good one
Fine.
or haha laughs.
Yeah.
I write LOL because I literally laughed out loud, and it's a simple.
You write LOL.
And yes, exactly.
It's what I do if I laugh out loud.
Because you're 12 years old. That's why. Unless young kids don't write that anymore. But he's in his 40s and he writes lol when I message him.
It's kind of cute though.
It is kind of
cute.
If I
laugh
anyway,
out loud, I'm going to tell you. Winston
enough.
Churchill wrote it in text message, so I'm going to write it.
Anyway, this podcast is also a tragedy in 3 parts. We'll discuss how the week between podcasts has been from our ADHD perspectives and as people involved in the ADHD community. We'll answer some of the questions we've received from that community, so remember to send them in on the socials or the Discord forum. And we'll talk a little bit more about this theme, why we chose it, and how we feel about it. So as usual, Alex.
I can't do. No, you don't bring attention to that.
I do. I know, but that's why I do it.
You've just changed the bit that's of mine to blue that wasn't blue, so it looks like
I didn't. Thank you.
That is ganging up on me. Ganging up. Can
I do my bit now? Can I read the bit that's in written? Yes.
Yeah,
so as always, I'll ask you two how your week was, and of course, nobody will ask me. So, Sam, how was your week?
Shit. Completely overwhelmed, not sleeping at all, just lying awake thinking about every interaction I've ever had and thinking, what did they mean by that? Oh God, they meant that. I reacted the wrong way. And then thinking about everything that's ever going to happen and how I'm going to react, even though it never helps. Not coping well at all. But I've got Rose to help now. Yay! Which is a massive help. So Rose B on Discord is helping out by taking all the questions and things off Discord and answering emails, and she's fabulous, and I love her. Thanks, Rose.
Rose. I mean, it's brilliant now having somebody to help us with the app, and we are, as some people will know, slowly taking volunteers on to help us. We're still looking for someone to help with answering social media messages. Alex's eyes just went wild because I think he realized he hasn't contacted any of the volunteers that he was meant to contact. Is that the reason, Al? Is that the reason? Yeah, it is.
Oh God, it's so
hard to remember though, and you've just had an operation.
It's really
Yeah, and he
tired,
doesn't care. Sam, so the person when you finish, normally you ask the next person to.
Oh God,
Oh,
how was your
but
week,
not
James?
me. Oh,
Oh.
me.
No.
Jesus, I've never
James.
gone second. I know that's odd.
Weird.
Also a bad week. Actually, a very bad week. Sorry to
Yeah.
be depressing. Like super bad. My ADHD has been wild, not peacefully wild, Al. Actually wild. Like
Ow!
all.
Ding.
Ugh.
I don't.
Sorry about that.
For anybody
High
that's
pain
not watching,
threshold, but not when I stub my toe. That fucking
yeah.
hurt. Carry on.
But I noticed during my part, obviously not Alex's. You know, as usual, if there's going to be a distraction, it's
fucking
going
do
to be
it on
during my
purpose.
part. Well, did you?
That's brilliant.
Yeah, bad week. All my symptoms all over the place. Loads of anxiety, loads of overwhelm. My migraines, which I had really bad. I've realised when I had 7 migraines in 9 days, it's probably because I had my 4th COVID jab. I'm not over 50, but they sent me the message saying you're in the next group. And headaches are a side effect. And we were trying to work out what's the trigger. Am I dehydrated? I drank 6.5 litres of fluid one day to make sure I wasn't dehydrated, and still got a migraine the next day. And then I thought, hang on a minute, this started like 2 or 3 days after I had my 4th COVID jab. So it was probably that. Went away for a week. I've had a couple of migraines. Yes, Alex. I know I'm not meant to do it, but I do it to wind you up.
It could have been garlic and crucifixes, couldn't it? Have you thought about? You've got to look for
The
these.
6.5 litres was holy water.
That was the problem.
And then all this led to suicidal ideation. Do you feel good now? Do you making that joke immediately before I talked about? Yeah, no, not so good. My migraines are a massive trigger for my bipolar and low moods. I've frozen, haven't I?
No, you're back.
You're okay.
No. Oh God, I thought I had because I froze.
It was
earlier.
a millisecond.
You just went C3PO for a second.
When you're time blind, that's a long time. My migraines are a huge trigger for my mood because I get lots of guilt that I'm missing a day's work or missing something. So I had a migraine on Monday, and this is after, and we'll talk about this in the next part. I'd completely cocked up travel to go to a talk, so I ended up having to travel on my own with the after effects of a migraine being all over the place. But the one thing that happened this week, which I think had such a positive impact and actually made all that shit worthwhile, was at one of the talks, somebody came up. I'm not going to give any details that are in any way recognizable, and they said they were very emotional. And normally the emotions when people talk to me are kind of disgust and being revolted, but this is a different type of emotion. They were very, very emotional, and they said that when they were at their absolute lowest, their real lowest, they couldn't get access to their doctor because the doctor's was closed. They found our podcast, and they said that it didn't change their life, it saved their life. And they just wanted to come up and tell me. And I know that sounds like, oh, look at us, we're brilliant doing all this stuff. And at least 2 of us in this podcast hate ourselves. And
I thought you were going to say, and at least 2 of us are brilliant.
No,
I did as well.
And therefore it's hard for us to sometimes just stop and give ourselves credit. And when people send nice messages in, it's almost like a surprise because we never stop and think about what we do. But standing there and having this person really, in floods of tears telling you what you've done is important, it makes all the shit I've been through this week worthwhile. It was just a really nice moment to hear that.
It was, and I want whoever said it, James, came and texted us and told us, and we were really talking about it. And the messages we get as well, we talk about them. Yesterday, Sam and I were saying on our little WhatsApp planning group how important it is that we talk about these, because it really is incredibly important to us. I think we never wanted to help people, did we? Is somebody clapping? Yeah. It's an incredible sound.
No, it was me opening a bottle of water. Sorry, Alex.
I liked it.
Alex, have we done Alex? I mean, I haven't.
No, we haven't.
Sam, because you're a floozy.
I am.
Alex?
Yeah, funny old one. Yesterday was 50 50 days with no alcohol.
Oh yeah.
Holy fuck. And I
Well
didn't say it
done.
on Twitter. I was embarrassed. You know what? I hate the word sober. I was 50 days sober because, I'm a fucking idiot. So I don't feel sober at any point in the day. But I have had 50 days without alcohol. And yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm thinking about how I share this really, because it isn't like people say, you're still tired in the mornings. I often wake up with a hangover. I'm like, well, that doesn't seem fair, because it turns out it wasn't the alcohol. It was just I'm shit human. But it feels interesting. It feels, I've done it before, but it never felt terminal before. It never felt like I'm really it's a day-to-day thing. I am aware of that, but it feels at the moment like I'm not going back. I want to start an ADHD support group for people who don't want to do something, whether it's alcohol or substances or gambling or something else, just so we can, because what's massively helpful to me, oh no, I've got to say it, haven't I? Even though he's a vampire tit, being able to text James, and even more so Jules, because I was doing that every day just about the alcohol, and it was invaluable having you both there for support. And so I was thinking we should maybe do something like that. Abstinence is hard for anything that you habitually form. Nice, I think. So yeah, that.
Well done though, Al. That's real achievement. You should be so proud of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely didn't think you'd get past 2 days, so I think you've done really well, mate.
I don't know how. I keep thinking, oh well, today I'll probably drink, but I'll try not to. Today I won't, actually. I know that's what I usually say. Today I won't, and tomorrow it will come, and I'll try not to think about it. Dodgy because of the operation. Thank you. That's amazing. Emergency trip to the doctors on Friday though, with a 4-year-old with a vomiting virus, and then woke up with a stiff neck where she was screaming. And if you've got kids or know anything about medics, you crap yourself. Absolutely crap myself. Turns out she had a vomiting virus and a stiff neck from a muscle problem, not meningitis, as I thought. I mean, Lisa and I had a horrible Saturday where we were at each other the whole day, really angry. And it was only last night that I realized that it was sort of like a mini trauma response to how we were, you think the worst is about to come. And so on Friday, we dealt with it. We were really relieved, but I don't think I realized that the come down from that was hard. Ding. It means that I missed. Well, it doesn't actually. I'm going to explain a lie. I completely missed my appointment at the doctor's to have my stitches removed. But I'd been there the morning with Sophia, and they said, oh, how's your daughter? And I was like, oh, because of that, I forgot the appointment. That's not true at all. I literally wrote down the wrong time by 2 hours in my diary on the day they gave me the appointment. Just wrote it down wrong, turned up at the right time. They're like, that was 2 hours ago. And I went, I was very frightened of my daughter. Shameless, really.
We often talk about how
weird.
We often talk about how ADHD is not an excuse, it's a reason. But does anybody, and I'm interested to find this out, does anybody listening, and do we ever literally use kind of it as an excuse or excuses around it? Because I find it just sometimes I will occasionally kind of, if it's not an ADHD thing, say it's ADHD, or just use it as a card, and it's a terrible thing. I was in a supermarket the other day, and I can't remember what had driven this, but I told Mrs. ADHD about this. I very nearly said, I have an invisible disability, it's ADHD, and I can't deal with this. And I had to stop myself from doing it, because I thought, why would you say that, you cock?
You look like such a knobhead. I do it all the time.
I never do it.
I look like a knobhead.
Yeah, both yes and mate. We need to do an episode on using ADHD as an excuse for bad behavior, because I do it all the time. Oh god, that's too open for me. Right, that's a good one. Last question then. Start with you, Sam. Listen to the question carefully. I'm so mean to you. What stupid thing have you been doing instead of what you were supposed to be doing this week?
Well,
I'll answer a different question.
I was supposed to be talking to Shell, but I was talking to Shell. There are 2 Shells on Discord, one with an S, one with a C. I was having a great conversation with Shell, who was saying about, I can't remember, something like, oh, she told me her age. And I went, there is no fucking way in hell you are insert age.
She
I
had
can't
a hard
remember what it
life.
was, like 54. And I went, how is that possible? And she showed me pictures of her in the 80s, and I still didn't twig that it was a different shell. And she went, I said, but you look really young. And she said, you've never met me. I said, I met you at the Glee Club in Birmingham. I've done a podcast with you. And she was like, oh, no, that's not me. I'd got a complete, and I'd been having a whole conversation with her,
Oh yeah.
thinking that it was a different shell. But yeah, so that, I think that one actually for it fit the criteria. I was I sat, and the same podcast actually, I sat waiting for them at 6 p.m. to do the podcast, and then realized it wasn't until 6:30, and that was the same podcast that I completely forgot about last week.
It's the Dopamine Kick podcast, is it?
Yes.
Shout out to them, friends of the bars.
I know, yeah. Hi, Sparky and Shell. It was that shell that I'd got mixed up with another shell. Yes, and I realised when I couldn't sleep, because I have not been sleeping this week at all, I answered 600 health questionnaires on my mum's DNA profile, but I answered them for myself. I haven't told her yet, so I'm like, because she's got her results. 600 health questions on my mum's profile, not mine. I haven't told her. Should I tell her? Does it matter? I booked a pole lesson to start immediately, to end immediately before a meeting that I was minuting. So there was just no way to do that at all. And got distracted. I was supposed to be cutting my dad's hair, but I got distracted by the cat and the cat flap and just left it halfway through. I'm going to stop now because I'm boring myself. Because there's loads more.
I've also taken one of them out because I think it'll make a good. You may have seen it, but I think it'll make a good. What did James forget, lose, or mislay this week? Because we had to move hotel room for a very embarrassing reason, which I think is good. Alex, what about you? What stupid thing have you been doing?
Well, I don't know what you've heard, but I definitely have not been overly invested in the website Birding in Franconia and buying some binoculars, because that would not be cool. So I haven't been doing that.
I love that.
Yeah. On an unrelated note, there's a purpuraya, which is a funny bird name around here, which means purple heron. And
I'll bring my binoculars when we come to visit.
Yeah, I've got some really cool new ones. Very, very excited. I also haven't, because this also isn't cool, been heavily invested in a geography quiz app where you know.
Oh yeah, you've loved that for a while.
Oh no, a new one. Yeah, I do.
Really?
I do the geography one every day. Yeah, honestly, ridiculously overinvested. But I was supposed to be, doing my literal responsibilities as chair of a charity, speaking to people about. Oh God, I missed so many meetings last week, and I know I use ADHD as an excuse, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do some of the things I was supposed to. I wanted to. I had the time. I was ready. It was all documented, and it was like paralysis. So I did stupid things instead. Soz. I guess we have to do it, do we, Sam? Do we have to go? What about you, James?
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, so there's a few which I think are good. The first, so obviously the MacBook that I am recording this on now is the MacBook that I use for all the charity work, including editing and blah blah blah, and it got really slow. And I looked into it, and of the 500 gigabytes on the drive, there was less than a gigabyte free, because I store all the podcasts on here. And we do have a flash drive, and I hadn't been copying them over. So I had about 30 episodes of each podcast recording, which is about 4 gigabytes. So I thought, well, I'll start transferring them, and tried to do it in a block. But when you've got that small a space on your computer, it won't move it. So I had to start moving individual bits in each podcast folder, and it was taking me like 10 minutes just for the computer to move one bit. And I did this for probably 9 hours over 2 days, and then thought, are there any other big files on my computer? And it turns out I got a 36-hour screen recording of my MacBook, which I'd accidentally started at a talk. So it was 36 hours of the screensaver on my MacBook, which was 385 gigabytes in size.
Oh, that's incredible.
I know. And I'd spent 9 hours trying to just move one little file over here and one little file over there.
And still more entertaining than the actual little talk you do.
Yeah, far more entertaining. Other
talk.
things are hyper focusing on. So we have some merchandise. No one buys it. It's on Redbubble. It's ridiculously expensive, and we make fuck all from it as a charity. So we're starting to look into doing our own. We've got one volunteer, Heist Favor, who's going to help us. We're using Cricut system to cutting things out. We've got our own little system to do that, and obviously then just massively hyper focusing on that. And for anyone who saw it on social media, the picture of Alex in the Barack Obama Hope style poster, forgotten the graffiti artist that did it, but hopeless instead. That was 4 hours on a Sunday morning following
that was
a tutorial.
Fucking worth it, though.
I've made some things.
Exactly. So rather than just doing things I wanted to do, or resting, or eating, or cleaning the house, or whatever, I was just hyper focused on that. And then just quickly, I'm in Leeds at the minute. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm in a very big room. This is a junior suite, and that's for a reason. I start the little talks, Alex, as you know, with a list of the things that I've done. Little talks. I start them with a list of things that have gone wrong in preparation, and fuck me, everything's gone wrong for this talk. So on Sunday, I said to Mrs. ADHD, so it's Leeds tomorrow then? And she went, no, that's Tuesday. And I went, no, it's tomorrow. And she went, no, it's Tuesday. And she started to massively panic. And I calmly thought, she's got the date wrong there. And she said, no, it's Tuesday. And I thought, what? And looked at my phone, and it wasn't Monday. I had planned with Mrs. ADHD all of my travel organization based on it being Monday. So I was getting a train up when I had a free slot on Monday. Tuesday, no free slots at all. So I couldn't travel on Tuesday. So then had to book a train and a hotel for Monday night. Then had a migraine on Monday and was off work, and had to jump on this train late on in the day, feeling awful. Turned up at the hotel, and we talked about this a bit earlier, I think in the Monday episode possibly. I got to the hotel, they didn't have my booking, and I'm quite proud of the fact that, unlike when I was in McDonald's, I've got a migraine. I'm in that post-dromal, sleepy, kind of dizzy, I'm not in a good place anyway, low mood place in my head, and to turn up at the desk and for them to say, you said, I've got a reservation. No, you haven't. I said, what? And showed them the piece of paper, and they said, yeah, you haven't got a booking. So showed my phone where they'd email me saying, hey, no, you haven't got a booking, sorry. And they brought out a colleague, and that colleague then served someone else, and then said to me, Hayes. And I said, sorry. She said, Hayes. And I said, what? She said, is that your surname? I'm like, no, Brown. And then eventually she said, oh, we'll just put him in 321, which is a junior suite. So I got upgraded, but I was really proud. Sam's doing something with a hand. Was really proud that I didn't lose my shit. I didn't lose my shit. I really almost wanted to lose my shit, but I just sat there.
I've got questions. One, did you go brown all angry like that, or did you say it like you will actually do, Mr. Charming? No, actually, brown, no problem, not your problem.
I went into kind of just calm and factual, just no, Brown. And there was no, it was almost, I wouldn't call it an underreaction, but it was an appropriate emotional response, I think.
The way James tells stories on here, you'd think he's like really angry. He's like the most people-pleasing person in real life, isn't he? He makes everyone try and feel good all the time. I bet you he bought them flowers or some shit.
I did. I did also, however, manage to lose a 750ml bottle of water that I'd bought immediately before, somewhere between reception and the hotel room, and it wasn't at reception because I went back and checked. So that, I think, is impressive.
It really is. I've done that so often. They're just gone.
Completely.
Well, thank you both for that. We're taking a break, and in part 2, we'll hear questions and thoughts from the ADHD adult community.
Holy shit!
I know. I looked at the script.
Alex, hi.
Aight. What's up? Hello, Governor.
Welcome back to episode 84 of the ADHD Adults, where episode 85 of the ADHD Adults, where we are talking. It's an extra special Thursday one, that's why I got confused. As always, in part 2, we're taking questions from the amazing ADHD community, coming from all over the socials at the ADHD Adults on Twitter, while it still exists, and Facebook, while we don't have to pay for it for some reason, and Instagram, whatever that is. But mainly we get our questions from the ADHD Adults Discord. Hello, everybody. We love you very much. So, backing straight into this, the first question is from Kaza with a C, or Kaza, or Sarza, then if it's a hard C. He says, okay, I have a question that no one seems to be able to answer. Why don't I feel physical things the same as my neuro-boring friends? Pejorative, I like it. So, for example, I really struggle to know if I'm coming down with something. I don't feel unwell until I'm really sick. Or if I hurt myself, I seem to be able to get over it quicker than my peers. Hubby says I'm just so ADHD, I get distracted from the pain. So my question is it just me? Interesting. Sam, did you see?
I'm
Yeah, it
the
is.
opposite. Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm hyper aware of absolutely everything that's going on inside my body. And I quite often describe really odd ailments that that are going on to James. I'm like, something's not right. I can feel that and it'll be something I can't even think of some of the things, but there's a pain here that's moving up my left colon or something. I'm really hyper aware of everything inside my body. So actually,
you're not actually perceiving what is there, are you? There isn't something moving up. It's just you're feeling something is. So what is true and what you're feeling aren't, and that's exactly what Kaza is saying, right?
Oh, then yes, we're all the same.
James, have you got any more science to add, James?
I mean, more science suggests that there was some science in that answer, doesn't it? I think there are a few things here that are interesting. I mean, this is the sensory processing week, and therefore some of the things that you would feel when you're feeling poorly, whether it's your temperature, whether it's a pain somewhere, etc., are sensations that your body has to process. And therefore, if you don't process some of the senses you have in the same way as a typical inrabiteous person, it might be that actually you struggle to know if you're coming down with something or feel unwell. Also, remember, we have poorer metacognition. So it might be that you don't really remember what it's like to have that feeling when you're coming down with a cold. You might think, oh, God, yeah, I don't normally feel like this, but it's something else. There's a number of different things, and we are all unique. Remember, even within the neurodivergent population, we are neurodiverse. So even as a person with ADHD, it might not be that it's your ADHD and you're getting distracted from the pain. It could actually be that it's just the way in which your body and your brain work. Alex?
That's true, actually.
Yeah. I think though that if I had to guess based on what you just said about metacognition, James, I think hubby here is right. I think that it's probably, if we did some experiments on it, I reckon we'd find, as we don't pay attention to what we pay attention to, that maybe we do in fact sometimes get distracted from the pain and sometimes overfocus on the pain, not in a weak way, but we have inappropriate emotional reactions, inappropriate awareness of things. So I bet you it turns out to be true. Clacks on, not science.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for that, Kaza. Question 2, also from Discord, I think, from Graphite. Here's a question. Is there any evidence that ADHD can get worse as you get older? Or is it simply that as you have to deal with more and more stuff, your brain runs out of capacity? Related, does societal acceptance of ADHD traits at a young age drop away as people get older with a belief that people should just grow up? Alex?
It's a fucking brilliant question, Graphite, honestly. So a lot of people say, incorrectly, that ADHD symptoms reduce as you get older. False. Essentially, there is some evidence that on average the hyperactivity symptoms do get lower, but it may be that we're just internalizing them, or we force ourselves to mask a little bit more. There is also evidence that ADHD symptoms get higher as you get older, especially in menopausal women, for example, but actually in lots of people. From a less scientific perspective, we have to deal with it, and we find ways, if we're lucky and we're privileged, we find ways to insert ourselves into lives and jobs and relationships where it's more tolerated. I think a lot of women often feel more invisible societally as they get older as well. So there may be an element there, which I find really, really interesting, but obviously I can't speak about. It's just a brilliant question. What about you, Samantha?
Yeah, I think part of it is what they say. You have to deal with more stuff. Like when you go into school, all your routine's mapped out for you. You don't even have to think about what clothes to wear. And then all of a sudden you're a grown up and you've got to think about fucking loads of stuff. And then you have kids, if you can have kids, good for you. Then you've got to think about them and doing their routine and stuff. So there's more stuff to think about, isn't there?
So
Is
you
that
think
it?
so it means it gets harder. Like it's
I think, yeah, the more
Ding,
stuff you've got to do, the harder it gets, Ding.
ding,
but
double
I
ding,
found school impenetrable and difficult and horrible
ding.
because I was bored. Yeah.
There's some
I
some
actually
evidence,
loved
I think.
school.
There's some evidence, I think, that at different levels of the educational structure, the ADHD symptoms can get worse. So this is one of the ones that we hear quite a lot from parents saying that I'm pretty sure my child has ADHD, but a doctor has said, well, we need to get a report from the school, and the school say, no, they're coping fine. They haven't got ADHD, but of course, when they come home, when they don't have that structure, particularly in junior school, which they have, which kind of feel like provides a framework for them to not be quite so externally ADHD. But as you go up the educational system and there's less and less structure, and you've got to more and more self-teach and self-govern and self-regulate, particularly at degree level and PhD level, that's when it can be difficult. So I think that there is, I think, issues when it comes to getting older and unmasking, which can mean that you feel like your ADHD symptoms are getting worse. And the last thing I'll say is about the second part of the societal acceptance. I would argue there isn't societal acceptance of ADHD even in children. We talked in the stigma episode about how 25% of people in one study said that they wouldn't want a family with an ADHD child moving in next door to them, and that's a pretty high and sickening number. So I think we're not even at a societal acceptance of ADHD traits at a young age, and definitely not as adults.
I think that's really accurate, and we only have to read. We're not going into the media nonsense we've been facing lately, but you only have to see that to see the stigma's very bloody real. The school thing you said, James. They're not like that. Teachers saying that. It's just because they're not looking properly. If anybody just asked me, they would have found out I was sad the whole time, and it felt like torture. But I wasn't able to express it in any way, naughty or otherwise. And I think that's true of adults too. I think it's the same for different environments.
Sam's
What about
looking
you,
at
Sam? Have you got any?
Sam's about she's read her answer to this. She's meant to be reading out question 3 now, but she was filing a nail or looking down.
No, I've got.
What
I
are
was
you
just
doing?
picking at scabs on my wrist, like I'm just picking at them.
Lovely.
Lovely.
Okay, question 3 is from Piano Pest on Discord.
Nice
Just
name.
curious if there's any evidence connecting infidelity and ADHD. Would this be a podcast in itself? This has been an issue affecting a few ADHDers I know, including myself in the past, but not sure there's any actual evidence to link the two. Or perhaps there is none, and those ADHDers affected are all just randy little buggers high on speed.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I chose this one because, as you both know, this has been a massive problem for me in the past.
In the past?
In the past.
Good save, Sam. Well done.
Not now. Yeah. And I'd say it's definitely related to ADHD. And there's quite a few things I think that are because of that. Obviously, the novelty factor. But for me, I have, and I put this in this episode because I have loads of sensory issues with sex. Like, I get massively overstimulated. Don't even look at my clit. Just move around it. And massively overstimulated, and I get focused on little things like, I don't know, if I was sleeping with a guy and he's just rubbing my fucking top of my leg or something, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? And I just focus on all the things, and I can get understimulated. So if I was with a long-time partner, all of this just, and my brain's just all the time going, what about this? When I had a one-night stand with somebody, none of that happened. So there was something about the novelty of it that my brain was just quiet.
You're completely stone cold sober, were you?
What?
Because that's a suppressant, isn't it? Stimulus suppressant. It's one of the reasons why people like it is because you don't feel as much on alcohol or drugs. And
oh yeah, no, I don't know. Mix. Sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't.
I feel the main take-home message is obviously that James is really bad at sex, because several times when you were saying, like, we're in a long-term relationship or when a guy's doing X, Y, and Z, a lot of people are going to take away from that James rubs the top of Sam's leg.
Imagine. As if I'd fucking stay with you. I mean, my God. There's a reason I've stayed with you.
Yeah, low self-esteem. Just to answer the question about the science behind all the evidence, there is evidence that there is increased extramarital congress in people who have ADHD. There are lots of reasons for this, including impulsivity, including inability to perceive risk, including the increased relationship issues that can lead to somebody, even without ADHD, maybe looking elsewhere, because we generally can struggle in relationships. So it is something. There is some documented evidence in some studies that there are higher rates of infidelity in couples where someone has ADHD.
Yeah, in a word, the answer is yes. We've done an episode on risky sexual behaviours and sex in general, but I think we should do one on infidelity. I think it'd be a really good and interesting episode. I have the same sex issues as Sam. When your task positive network of your brain's doing the task, and your daydreaming network kicks in and starts during sex going, is this how it's supposed to look? What am I supposed to be feeling? What's happening? You know, in films when they're like, oh, I'm only thinking about you. Should I be feeling like that? I'm tired. What pigeons do? Doves just white pigeons. And oh no, shit, no, what am I supposed to be doing? It's like self-loathing and shame about feeling like that. And
that's where it's an advantage, actually, having a partner with ADHD that does understand and understands the need for kind of changing things all the time, but not too much, because you need it's a fucking minefield, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And the brilliant thing of having a wife you can laugh about it with at the same time is the best thing that ever happened to me. Not getting mushy, because that's horrible. On that bombshell, taking a break, I think, in part 3. Thoughts on this week's theme and podcast. See you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Welcome back to part 3 of episode 85 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we're going to, as usual, give you some more personal reflections. So we'll start off with what made you choose the last idea for a theme, Alex?
Yeah, it's always been a thing. I didn't realise for years that I had these sensory issues. I thought, as you know, I said earlier on Monday, I thought there's something wrong with my eyes, and essentially, I've always thought it was weird that what I say is I'm food picky, but for everything. So, and I thought that was odd. Everything, even pain, some pain, fine, tiny pain, not. So, yeah, being food picky for everything and everybody else talking about it, I thought it was really good and timely. Sam?
I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I have no editorial rights on this podcast, so I didn't get to choose the theme and never will.
I know I like that so much. I do, though. What about you, Jim?
Oh, I was just 2 seconds. I was actually going to count how long it would take for somebody to ask me, but well done. RSD actually did it, and that's the RSD from Sam hating my breathing and eating. Just glancing over and seeing her wearing noise-cancelling headphones when I'm eating food next to her made me think, first of all, she doesn't listen to music much, so oh my God, she's doing that to stop hearing the noise of me eating or breathing. And that made me feel so bad about myself that I then thought, but it's not her fault if she has sensory processing issues. And that made me think about my own sensory processing issues. So for me, it was kind of RSD leading to me looking into it myself more. The last question, well, I added to the script there, Alex. Was there any thought or tip from a theme that you forgot to say, Alex?
Yes. One thing, shame, guilt. I've been so ashamed of my entire past of having inappropriate emotional reactions to over or under sensory stimulus. There was a running joke in my university friend group, who still are some of the best people I've ever met, and they laughed a lot and still do about stand by it. About an incident I had with a girlfriend at the time at university who. I was eating potatoes they'd made for me, and they were kind enough to made for me. And instead of just going, oh, thank you, they weren't right. And I was inappropriate about it and in front of everyone. And this was, nearly 30 years ago, and they still bring it up now. And it's so painful and shameful because I didn't know why I was like that. And I just felt like a terrible person. And A, it was only potatoes, and B, but the wrong kind of potato, mashed potato, that's the wrong constituents. It can help me out.
Consistency. Consistency.
Thank you. Yeah, I got stuck on the shirt
Political
that isn't there.
potatoes.
Exactly. Was awful and shameful. So one thing is that if you can reflect on it with being kind to that kid view of your own inappropriate emotion reactions and how you can stop that happening in future if it hurts people, which this did, it's made me like myself a little bit more. So that's all I wanted to say. What about you, James?
One of the things we get asked a lot is about kind of disclosing your ADHD or ADHD traits, etc. And it is a personal thing, but if you feel able to, it's okay to say that something is too much. So it's okay to say, I can't deal with that, sorry. And I know that sometimes you'll be afraid of what the response will be. But unless you're surrounded by monstrous people, most people, if you say, sorry, sorry, I really struggle with loud music, or I really struggle with bright lights. Brilliantly at one of the little talks I was doing, they had spinning lights shining on the ceiling while I was talking, and a smoke machine. Yeah, and after 3 minutes, somebody said, "I'm sorry, can you turn those lights off? It's really distracting."
That's brilliant.
I know.
Wow.
And
why not have a squirrel running around?
They did, and the lights guy was brilliant because he put the lights down and put them up for a joke and kind of turned it into a joke. But it's okay to say that rather than sitting there in kind of distress, like I can't say anything. It's okay to say that. It's okay to walk out of an environment where there's too much sensory overload because you are important.
Yeah.
Not if you're a surgeon.
No, obviously,
Yeah, all that. And also, what I forgot to mention is that the sensory things for me can be incredibly positive too. It's why I can sunbathe, because when I'm outside, there's so much to feel, hear, see, smell, touch, and experience when I'm outside in the sun. And I get overexcited when I'm outside in a forest or a park. I get so much joy from everything I see, and I'm amazed and entranced by everything I see and feel. And that's the nice side of it, really.
Not Alex's forest, though, obviously.
Haven't been there yet. The smells will be bad there. Decomposing bodies, I'd imagine.
Next bit's in blue well.
James, I guess. I know you.
No, he's done it.
Yeah. Next bit's in blue well. So
I was thinking about the lights. That is amazing. Right. We need an episode on how we make this a positive thing, Sam. I really like that idea of how we tap into these things and make them positive. That was episode 85 of the ADHD Adults, and it was the very, very first Thursday expedition of the ADHD Adults podcast that's gone out in February or March. After Monday's episode on ADHD and sensitive issues, if you like this nonsense, honestly, have a word with yourself. What's wrong with you, but you want to get involved, please contact us on the socials, on Discord, on all the others at the ADHD Adults. Really lovely to see you. Have a great weekend. Bye all.
Bye.
See you later.
Have a good day.
Trigger warning, klaxon. Klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning, klaxon. Klaxon, klaxon.